So since we have such a short time, I want to jump to a couple questions. The first one is you've talked about how like once your career took off, it presented this new set of obstacles that like maybe you hadn't considered, like the touring and different pressures and things like that.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about that from the shift from being like a hustling emerging musician to suddenly thinking about marketing things correctly and balancing work life and all that?
Yeah, I mean there's kind of this saying where it's like you have your entire life to write your first album, which can be really frustrating because you may feel like it takes forever or whatever, however long it takes to get that big break. But then a big thing that people don't think about, and I never really thought about, was how do you maintain a career and keep everything going when you do get that break with touring or following up albums or writing more songs, and kind of like the balance of keeping yourself happy but also keeping your fans happy, but then also keeping the business happy, which is a big thing that people don't think about. They don't think about, once you get into all that stuff, you have a label and management and this and that all have a say in what you do. So I think a big thing for us has just been being strategic with, what kind of opportunities we take, what kind of things we don't do, how much time we allow for writing and balance it with touring and all that. Because nowadays, you can't it's really rare that an artist can just stop, take a break, and disappear for a while, do whatever, and then come back. It's like nowadays they'll be forgotten about so quickly. So.
Yeah, well, so, I mean, do you struggle with that at all? Like, because you do have to give up a lot of things that when you were first starting out and you're going, like, you could talk to fans all the time, and you could do pretty much whatever you wanted. Do you guys struggle with that now at all, or is it more just like it's a bit easier because you have more help?
No, it's not terribly difficult. We still make time for our fans, and we still do everything that we can. We tour, 200 to 300 days out of the year, even when it's shows that people don't know about, like private shows, corporate shows, whatever. But I think, balancing your personal life is really big, and figuring out where you place that time and how you fit all your friends and family back home into your life. That's always huge. And for us, the biggest difficulty is like when it was just us, just doing our own thing, we could just release whatever we want whenever we want. And once you have such a big crew and these schedules going on, it just seems like things can take forever sometimes. It's like, this song is pretty much done. I want it to come out tomorrow. But you have to wait a month for it to come out. So that's been a really big challenge, and how do you strategically plan out your songs and when to release things, and how to release them.
Yeah, well, that side of it, right? The business side is like quite important, especially as it's growing. Yeah,
how do we do our music videos? How do we do our photos? Where do we release them? How do we release them? Because before, it was a really easy thing where it's like, hey, we did this video. Cool, let's release it tomorrow. Or hey, let's do this. Release it.
Yeah,
we can just kind of do whatever we want. But.
Yeah. So one of the things I like to talk about a lot, and I also do guitar, so like I'm on the business side, and I'm always trying to talk to artists about how important that side of it is, like treating it like a business to a degree, and I think it's really helpful for emerging artists to hear about like kind of starting points in successful musicians' careers. Like, you always hear the stories of we played to 5 people, but stories like, if you could share a story like that, not that example, but where maybe it would have been easy to kind of like throw up your hands and be like, this isn't for me, but instead it forced you to push forward a little bit.
The biggest thing is just never giving up. It didn't come overnight for us, and we just kept writing and playing and performing and doing everything that we could. And we also never really said no to opportunities. Even if the deals didn't seem to be the best in the beginning, we would always just take chances and do everything that we could. We'd take every opportunity, and we would take every piece of note. And the big thing for us is we booked our own tours, we kept writing and networking.
Yeah, it's a big one.
And we met our producers, Shep Goodman and Aaron Aceto. We started writing with them. And we were even working with them for maybe like a year or two before we just kept writing, and then we came up with the songs Believer and Best Day of My Life. With their connections, they took those and just kind of sent them around to get opinions.
Yeah, because it was through like a licensing deal, right?
Yep, exactly. But it wasn't even a licensing deal. It was really like a friend of Shep's who was in licensing just sent it to her to get her opinion. And she was like, hey, I really like this. Do you mind if I send it out to some companies? And then like the next week, it got placed in an ad. And it was the same thing with Believer. He was sending it out. He got Regan's input from Alt Nation, and he loved it. He was like, hey, I want to play this next week. So that was
like
it.
Never happened, right? It was like well, I mean, it was like quite a lot of.
I don't know. I think it's about having the right music, like right music at the right time, and honestly, yeah, the business side and having that connection was important, but like, I think if it wasn't for us pushing along and trucking through the hard times, if it wasn't for us being open to co-writing with Shep and working with a new producer and getting involved in a production deal with him, if it wasn't for us taking every opportunity we could to go into the studio and write, and also taking suggestions, because the way that we even came up with those songs is we would go in there and we were showing songs and be like, you guys are writing such sad stuff, everything sounds like these sad Coldplay songs, write something happy. And immediately it's like the way that it all started was me being like, all right, cool, here's your happy song. And I started playing the riff to Believer and just go and just like, and he's like, hey, that's a cool riff. I just started humming over, it's gonna believe, it's gonna get better. So it's like, I'll think back to that and be like, man, what if, because it was like a random day in a month, just like one random day at the studio. And I'll think back to like, what if I would have said no to going in that day?
Right.
What if I wanted to go to the beach instead that day?
Yeah.
And sometimes you gotta look at those opportunities when they come your way. Just be like, okay, maybe I'm tired today, or maybe I do want to go to the beach, or I want to go to, I don't know, whatever, Universal Studios, or whatever, like a theme park. But take the work when you can get it, especially when you're starting off. Especially when you're starting off.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know you have a lot of interviews, so I don't want to keep you, but is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Nope.
All right, thank you very much.
You are welcome. Thank you.
Yeah.